Hello, everyone. My name is Sveta, and I'm a UX/UI designer here at Data Rockets. And the idea came to my mind that I can talk about how design inherits best practices from development. And firstly, I was thinking there is quite a lot that design inherits or adopts. But while making this presentation, I figured out that not that many as I expected. And I decided to talk about this topic because I have a degree in computer science and I used to be a Java software engineer. So I know something about object-oriented approach. So let's start with the beginning. So I'm going to talk about UX/UI design that I'm doing now. And just a quick look at the what is it. There are a lot of definitions. What is a user experience? What is user interface? But here is the definition that I take from ISO papers. So user experience is person perception and responses. So resulting from the use of software. And it also includes emotions, beliefs, preferences, perceptions, like all the reactions that user may have. User interface, that's components that provide information and controls. So some articles say that design started many, many years ago from Feng Shui, probably. But what we can say that the UX started in 1950s, because in 1945, Bell Labs hired first psychologist to design telephone system. And the UX term was coined by Don Norman in 1993. So actually, Don Norman is like a father of the UX design because he invented this particular term. So let's move on and go to the object-oriented. So the first thing that design inherits in design it calls component instance relations, which is some sort of like class object relations. So we have like the main component, which is the class, and then this class has some properties. We describe them, and then we use instances of this component and update properties, and that's why we change the behavior and how this component looks. So the main thing. And the next thing that is like, here I listed several object-oriented principles. And surprise, surprise, we in design do not use almost everything. Like the one thing that we really adopted is composition. So that's quite easy. And what I also figure out that we use pseudo encapsulation, some sort of, because there is no possibility to hide some properties. We don't have private properties, actually. When we create a complex component that consists of several basic components, we can just expand all the properties and change it whatever we want, even though it will be illogical or not correct. So unfortunately, here is was my disappointment that in a design we don't have tools that are supposed to do that, and probably we don't need that. The next thing, which is also I consider as like inherited from the development, is atomic design. And I think that's some sort of modularity that exists in design. Although the atomic design, like it's the names or the terms are taken from chemistry or biology. So this principle is that we have subatomic instances, or basic instances like topography, shadows, color palette, spacing, and so on. And then we have atoms that are very, very simple objects, like a button or input or checkbox. And then we can build molecules from that. It's like, here's an example, the input with a label, or it can be a breadcrumb or checkbox with a label, and so on. And later we build with them organisms, like several components built together, and then templates and pages. So I still consider it like inherited from the development, more like It's represent the, let us say, the entities that exist in, like, for example, in software that we build. And the one more thing that I found quite interesting at the beginning, well, no, sorry, let's move to the design principles, like keep it simple, you're gonna need it, and don't repeat yourself. Actually, they are not widely spread in the design community. They are described in some resources, but I think that they like not highly adopted in the design, although I think they are very, very useful just for keeping the infrastructure clear and understandable. And the last thing I have figured out, and I was surprised, that's in design there is like object-oriented user experience approach exists, and it was described in some papers firstly in 2015, and I was like very surprised by that. But finally, I figured out that the main idea that this approach took from the object-oriented programming is the idea of objects, that everything is an object. And for design, usually in design, in UX practices, we follow the functional approach. When we create a user flow, this is a sequence of operations that user can perform. And here, this is like object paradigm, where we have a set of objects which has attributes and methods and nested objects, so to understand relations between them. And that's all about the object-oriented UX, actually. So, and it's not really, I don't know designers who are aware of this method, except one person who is my classmate, who was my classmate in the university. So I suppose that this is because of just our common background in engineering. Yeah, so I think that's it. It wasn't really, really long presentation. That's it that I was able to figure out. So probably, thank you for listening, and probably you have questions that I will answer.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I've never thought of connecting engineering and design. And I'm curious about the principles. Yeah, you mentioned that in programming there are principles that were taken by design sphere, but maybe there are some principles, like a local principles for design, like an equivalent, which is not used in programming, only in design, like something like with something similar to those.
Well, yeah, there are design principles that are like, there are several laws named by people's name, like Jacob's law, or I don't remember all of them, that describes the rule how people get the information, what information people notice firstly, and then what they notice on the second step, and so on. And there are different rules. Sorry, I cannot name, but it's like called dependency between the size and the distance from the objects to another one. So there are some of them that do not exist in the programming, but only because of in design we have a visual picture of what we see. So that's it.